It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily for January 6, 2025. Flyers Daily presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. To discuss the week that was for the Flyers. Of course, it was a road trip. They wrapped it up last night. We'll discuss that as well. And some other ancillary topics, including a goaltending flow chart. Maybe we'll even dip into some Elias Pettersson as well. Joining us from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm still kind of digesting the road trip here before the Flyers come home. You know, it really was it could have been better just in terms of Flyers having played well enough to win more than half the games on the trip, come away from more than half the points. I guess the silver lining is that they did play well enough to win pretty much every game other than the first one on the trip. I mean, they won, which they did win that game. But, I mean, I thought the Flyers really could have come away with 4 wins, maybe even with a couple plays going their way in Toronto, maybe even like a 4-0 in one trip, maybe, I don't know. But, I mean, on the whole, I thought the Flyers looked pretty good in most of those games. They cleaned up a lot of areas after Christmas, so – on the whole, I thought it was a decent trip, but it's not going to mean anything unless they come home and kind of hit the ground running with the back half of the home and home. Tough game against Dallas, so I guess it really matters as much more than anything else how they follow up in the upcoming games.
Yeah, I think after a long road trip out of time zone like that first game back is usually a pretty tough one for the home team. Yeah. But I think that maybe gets mitigated a little bit because you're playing the same opponent. And I think there was a little bit of scar tissue built up in that game last night. I mean, Domi threw 2 really egregious elbows at Garnet Hathaway.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, does he hear from the league on that, Bill? The elbow's a vicious thing to throw.
Yeah. I think he could be looking at a fine for it. I don't think he's going to be suspended for it. And I get it. I get in terms of they didn't like the play with McCabe in the first period, and
McCabe instigated the fight.
He did. Well, he did. I mean,
they didn't like the result.
There was the goalie interference up ice, right?
Yeah.
And then he gave Hathaway a shot. They dropped the gloves, and he lost. He lost the fight. I mean, Hathaway got the better. You never want to see a guy go down like that. No. But yeah, I mean, he wanted the fight, but that's happened forever. You're trying to do something on behalf of a teammate, and we'll see. I mean, it got a little testy at times. We'll see. I don't think either team's really. Both teams have guys that they're more agitators than fighters. I'm not expecting anything in that sense.
Yeah, it's not going to be the old Senators game.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think it should get you into the game right away. If anything would happen, it would probably happen very early in the game. So, but I mean, the Flyers can take away from that. I thought Philly really, it was unfortunate they went off trailing after the first period because they played a ton of pace in that first period. Really, the first 30, 40 minutes of the game were really good. Even the third period, I mean, you took it to overtime and in a position to win it. And even in overtime, right, you have a chance at one end. Goes the other way, they score. It just kind of stinks to settle for 1 point a game like that against a very good Toronto team.
Yeah, I mean, in that game, let's get right to Fedotov first because he gets his first start, Bill, in a calendar month. The last time he played was back on the 5th of December in that game against Florida. He was pulled after the first period. He gave up 2 goals on 7 shots. The last time he played a full game was Black Friday.
Against the Rangers.
Against the Rangers, and played really well in that game. But he found himself as the third man in a three person goalie rotation, which is not the spot you want to be. And I thought he came in and he made some really good saves when it's just reaction, when things break down and a bang bang play happens. But when he had to read plays, that's where I really saw his rust.
Yeah.
Because he was late on the read, therefore stabbing at pucks and leaving some really, really big rebounds. And that was really the cause of both those goals.
Yeah, in both of them. The second one particularly, because that was a shot from distance.
Yeah, that was a
really just should have just been swallowed up. and instead he leaves it right out in the slot. That's gonna burn you many times. But he settled in after that. And some situational saves too, because after the Flyers got it back to 2-2, there was a great A chance right after that. I mean, if you give up another one there, then I think the game takes a whole different complexion. So he did make some good situational saves. It was kind of unusual seeing 2 6'7" goalies in the same game. I'm glad they said in the broadcast, that I think it was the third or fourth time that there have been 2 goalies that big starting in the same game. But it was kind of an intriguing matchup. And Flyers will have a decision to make, because I don't think that I don't think Sam Ersson is going to be ready for. He's going to need a couple of practices at this point. So you're looking at a Kolosov and Fedotov choice here. Whereas I think Wall gets the game for Toronto on Tuesday.
Yeah,
but both goalies I thought settled in as they went along, because early on it looked like it was going to be a really high scoring game. But I like how the Flyers played the game for the most part. I really thought that they went in and Toronto was playing in a back-to-back. The Flyers were a little bit more rested. Toronto was playing the third time in 4 nights. But all that being said, I on the whole, I really liked how the Flyers played the game overall. That's why I said I thought they easily could have come away with the 2 points.
Yeah, I like the way that Fedotov settled into the game as well. Didn't overplay his position. Got a little bit calmer. I didn't love the goal in overtime because it's a clear-sighted shot, but it's a great shot, and it's a 2-on-1 in a 3-on-3 overtime. Mishkov goes down prior to that, Bill, in that overtime, tries to spin backhand to the short side, very low percentage shot, especially because he spun at about just above the dot where he began that spin, and it's an easy save in that spot, and it ends up going the other way and in the back of your net. We've talked about why are save percentages down in the NHL, and there's been a lot of research done on this. Kevin Woodley did a lot. Talked to Vasilevsky. It's because players aren't taking low percentage shots anymore. They're waiting for the high percentage shot, and that's even more relevant in a 3-on-3 overtime. Mishkov tried to flip over the net, ill-fated. There's nobody there. These are things that he's learning. He's going to have to go through. About puck management and game management. But the spin backhand, I appreciate the creativity of it, and it looks Dennis Savardian. But it's not a smart play in that spot. He's got a lot to learn. I know there's a whole group on Twitter that thinks he walks on water and he never makes a mistake. Anything that happens when he's on the ice is bad. It's everybody else's fault. It's okay to heap some criticism on the kid. He's not gonna spontaneously combust and say, "I want out of Philly." I'm getting tired of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like every player ever, he's going to figure out what works for him and what does not work for him at the NHL level. And he's smart, and he will. The creativity is a great thing, but he'll find that it'll try something that will rarely work for him or doesn't work for him, he'll lose the puck or whatever, and he won't do that.
The risk isn't worth it. The risk reward proposition is outweighed too much.
Exactly. And being a player as hockey smart as he is,
and as competitive,
he'll figure it out.
And he's a competitor. He wants to win, so he's not going to purposely do things to just try and be some dangling superstar at the cost of game result.
Yeah,
he's a guy that wants to win, and I think we've seen his competitiveness. And he'll learn these things for sure. Let's go back to the goalie thing real quick, Bill, because Kolosov, he's had some games where he's been really good, but let in a bad goal and otherwise really good performance. And right now, though, to me, he looks a little overmatched at the NHL level. The NHL, I don't believe it's the developmental league for any position, and certainly not that position. In the AHL, you can maybe default low too early and get away with it. In the NHL, they will eat you up like that. The wraparound goal that Haig scores on him. He's got the right leg outside the post. Now he's got too far to travel, not using the post for the push out, and he's late. He's late on the left post seal, and it ends up hitting off him and in. You get away with those things maybe in the NHL. You don't get away with them in the NHL. if Harrison can't prove to get back and be healthy and stay healthy, what are the options here, both short and long term? Because his development, Kolosov's, is much better served in the AHL for periods of time. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the NHL at all this year, but periods of time he needs to be in the AHL.
No, I agree. I think that with some exceptions, right? The Detroit, the home game against Detroit, where he flirted with a shutout for 2 periods. Now, Flyers just pretty much dominated that game, kind of gave him kind of an easy game in goal, but he's had a few hard saves to make, and he did come up with it. But in general, it's usually at least one a game where you go back. Yeah, he'd like that one back. When that happens too often, maybe this level of play isn't right for him at this point in time. I'm not worried about him going back to Russia at this point. It's a late point in the season anywhere, and
later
Russia,
there.
It's well, the playoffs start a month earlier than they do over here. So teams kind of have their goalie for the year, and he should be a little bit more settled in here. Know the routine, a little bit more comfortable communicating, whatever. But the bottom line being that he hasn't shown enough in the NHL to stay up here. I don't think he has. And Fedotov, he's an older goalie. I mean, he's 28 at this point, so he's not a guy you're developing. It's now or never for him.
Yep.
Whereas we don't know what Kolosov's going to be in a year, 2 years. He's still a very young goaltender, so it's not the end of the world for him. He might think it is, but it's not the end of the world if he spends a little bit more time in the American League. But in terms of what the Flyers can do, I don't know. I don't believe Cal Peterson is the answer.
No, that he's not the answer.
Yeah.
That's what you mean.
Yes, exactly. Not even as the backup. So
you're throwing options here.
Yeah, well, I mean, what that leaves is trying to go get a serviceable kind of veteran goalie somewhere else. That'd be other alternative if Sam Ersson isn't healthy, because even where the Flyers are right now, kind of hovering around hockey 500, they ran on the broadcast tonight. They fired just a couple of points out of the lower playoff spot.
Yeah.
And I know people go, oh, well, you should be tanking. Like I hate that line of thinking. If you can get in the playoffs, get in the playoffs, and and then let the chips fall wherever they may. But if it's there, if it's reachable for you, I'm not saying you're gonna make a bunch of Band-Aid kind of trades to try to get in right now, but if you have the opportunity to get better, then I think you have to do it. I don't like giving away entire seasons. And right now, the Flyers' number one issue has been the goaltending. For all the hand-wringing over the goal scoring, and for a long time, the Flyers were struggling to score. But if you look over the last 20 games, Flyers were in the top 5 in the league offensively. It's not a lack of goals now. Now it's keeping it out of their own net. And they're not giving up a lot of shots. They're not giving up a ton of quality lately. But yet they're still giving up too many goals.
Yeah.
And the goaltending has to be better.
And that'll undo a team more and more over time as it continues as well. That's the cumulative effect of that is really what worries me, is that repeatedly happening, not only for all the players that play on the team in the mindset, but also for those goalies, because I think there's a cumulative effect. And that's why I don't think developing a guy like Kolosov there. Now, some people go, if he's not good now, he'll never be good. Just get rid of him. You know what I mean? No, like Igor Shesterkin played 25 games in the AHL. He came over at 25 years of age too. These guys, people see Shesterkin come over and Sorokin and they go, oh, I just popped in from the KHL and dominated. They also came over later. It's a little different.
Yeah.
And they were a higher level pedigree than Kolosov as well. Yeah, I mean, you can't go into the trade market. We can trade for like Elvis Merzlikins got a huge contract. He's bananas. I think he could be a decent goalie, but like I don't know where improvement is. A buddy of mine said they should just claim Caden Primo. I go, he's worse than those two. He just played good against the Flyers.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you never know the goalie. Sometimes the goalie will click, but inconsistent guys tend to stay inconsistent, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The key to being an NHL goalie, you can have those games like Kolosov had, the really good performance against Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
but to be a legit NHL guy, you got to have consistency. You can't have this gap between your ceiling and your basement, where you just don't know what you're going to get. Let me ask you about Ristolainen, because 2 assists in the game last night. I thought he defended extremely well. He got up the ice. He was physical, yet not running himself out of plays and out of structure. Bill, there's no more talk about retention on Rasmus Ristolainen at this point. He's straight up get you something. But is he a guy that could be moved in season with 2 years remaining on that deal?
I think he could be, depending on what you get in return. It's not like he's 35 years old or something. You know, he's still of an age where he can contribute, and I think the Flyers have him slotted the right way, which is where I think he would be on a contending team too.
Yeah.
For a lot of years with Risto, the biggest thing was he wasn't coached very well in Buffalo, and B, they rushed him right to the NHL as a teenager, stuck him on their top pairing, playing him 20-something minutes a night, PP1, and he was an incomplete player. He get you 40 points, but he give up he give up too much of them. Even though he was up near the top of the league in hits, he would just run himself out of position. I think Bradshaw really taught him to work within his game, and he slotted the right way. If you have some injuries, you can move him up, but really kind of in the middle of your defensive rotation, I think is about the right place to play him. If you have a really deep blue line, he'd be a great number 5 somewhere. But he's never played in the playoff game just by situationally. I think that he's a guy who in a playoff series would be a bear to play against. I really do.
Dividends over multiple games.
Yeah.
He came to the Flyers with more bad habits than an episode of Intervention. Let's face it, coming out of that Buffalo situation, and it took some time, but he's finally realizing his potential with some parameters on his game. We'll see if they end up moving him. We'll see what happens at the deadline. We've talked about this, but this Cates-Brink Foerster thing keeps going on. Yeah. Foerster's got 6 goals in his last 8 games. Brink's not scoring, but he's setting up a ton of plays.
Making very good plays. Yeah.
This line's just copacetic. It works, and I don't know why, but when things work, I guess I shouldn't question it. And it's really going now. Like, this is kind of remarkable considering these 3 pieces and how they fit.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it on paper, you would say it's not the fastest line out there. All 3 guys came in with some skating question marks into the pro level, but they read off one another well. They're always up on their skates. Right now, Foerster's playing with a ton of confidence. He's scoring goals. Cates is making plays and scoring some goals too. Cates went a long time without producing really much of any offense. No matter, even though he would do a lot of good things, the one thing he wasn't doing was scoring. I don't know if he'll keep it up at the level he's been scoring at, but he'll continue to play that 200-foot game, doing a lot of things the right way. Whereas I think with Brink is that and I'm glad he's getting the praise that he is on Friday Forecheck on the Flyers website. I've just talked. The main topic was Brink on there because even though the points don't look that great, he's doing a lot of good things and making a lot of plays.
Yeah, checking
for them. Yeah, and so that I think that at some point I think he'll get more offensive rewards. I mean, the Lions deserve the ice time it's been getting. And right now they have Noah Cates playing in every game situation, and he's earned it. Now, whether long term he'll stay in the power play or whatnot, we'll see. But he's shown that he's a really valuable piece on this team. And one thing the Flyers have been getting is they've been getting balance up and down the lineup. Yeah. I think over the last 18 games coming into Toronto, the Flyers had, I think, 8 different guys with 9 or more points in the last 18 games, and and half a dozen guys with 12 or more points. I mean, the balance has been there. But the constant really has been the Cates line, because they've been part of that mix game in and game out. So that's been a really great thing to see happen.
Very consistent. Bill, last thing. Elias Pettersson's name's been floating around. I don't know if he's available or not.
Right.
But if a 26-year-old center is available with the pedigree of the player that he is, I mean, that's a rare thing to happen. I would think that there'd be very serious conversations. What does it take to get a guy like him? There is a concern for me. Why is a team trading a 26-year-old?
Well, yes.
There's a concern there, but I'm willing to try and find a way to bridge that. But what does it take to get him? Is it 2 of the first-round picks this year, a Brink or Foerster and Bonk? Is it that large?
I think it would be the first-round pick. It would be a roster player, and a prospect. I think that's the magic combination. And I mean, it would probably would probably be the Flyers' own first-round pick, though.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm solving a huge problem that I don't know that I can solve it in any other way.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, it's also part of what kind of team do you want to be, though.
Yeah.
Right? And there are some knocks on Pettersson, who's a very good offensive hockey player, and would definitely come in and be an offensive impact player here. A guy who could play with Michkov, could play really any skill for it. Put him with Tippett, put him wherever you want to put him. And I mean, this guy's been a 100-point guy in the NHL one time.
Yeah, 102 points.
Yeah, but he come in, get you a point a game, whatnot. I mean, honestly, the knock on him is that, well, he's not a guy you're going to win with in the playoffs. But you hear that until suddenly the guy is, right?
Yeah, and it's not about one guy in the playoffs.
Exactly. It's always all about a team. So that wouldn't scare me off. But as long as you realize that it's just one piece of a puzzle, and you at the end of a rebuild, I mean, he certainly is a top 6 piece, but you still have more needs to get there.
Yeah, but if you can check that box, that's a big one.
That's a huge box to check.
Yeah, it's a big box.
Yeah. And certainly the offensive side of things, right? Then you can have more role players pushing on in other people, and other guys too can slot in the right spot in the lineup too.
Yeah.
Whereas I think they're more ideally suited for those roles. So
yeah, as Brad Pitt once said in the movie Seven, "What's in the box?" There we go. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll preview Flyers Leafs second game of the home and home as they return back to the Wells Fargo Center ice. Everybody have a great Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.